Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me Brimstone, who has done pretty much everything, including being an actor, video game character, voice actor, professional wrestler, comic book writer, and comic book owner of a company, host of the Grindhouse radio show, as well as it's a podcast. So, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, brother. I'm glad to have been able to make it happen. Pop anime, right? Pop anime.
It's Pop Anime
That's what,
Comics, Pop Anime Comics Lounge. So
that's what I'm
that's
talking about. I got my little coffee here, so this way we could sit, we could have a nice conversation. You got to have see some people drink beers, I drink a different type of brew. This is the coffee kind. You know what I'm saying? And I got my water too. Don't I don't want to leave any H2O out because we're going to be having conversations, so we got to make sure to keep everything nice and fluid. You know what I'm saying? Nice and fluid. Anyway, so and we're live to your audience now.
we're live right now. So we are live on Facebook, and it will eventually meander its way into several groups as well as onto YouTube for everybody out there. Just fair warning to everybody. So yeah, we're just gonna have a nice conversation, and I do want to spend a lot of time talking about Hound Comics, which is part of a much larger group and part of everything that you've done, which we're going to get into. But you are a professional wrestler, and I'm a huge wrestling fan. I'm obviously wearing one of my favorite wrestlers, Solo Darling's shirt, and I love everything she's doing. But I want to talk about your wrestling career, and I think the best place to start is with Critical Mass. Because you, as part of Critical Mass, with Mayhem and Hostile, Chris Hostile, and I think it's Matt Mayhem, I want to say, or am I missing?
Yeah, Mike Mayhem. Mike Mayhem was one of my tag partners for a very long time. Mike and I, we came up at the Doghouse, which if anybody knows anything about the wrestling scene here in New York, you know that the Doghouse, the famed LIWF Doghouse, was the breeding ground for a lot of major players, of today. You got guys like Low Key Homicide, Lath on the Tower of Torture. You've got, what do you call it, Papa Don. And the list goes on, and just so many people that, Amazing Red, had been there. What do you call it? Xavier, who just passed away, had made his way through there. He never trained there, but he came and he hung out and he trained with us on occasion. Great guy. Damian Dragon. Again, there's so many really cool players that came out of the Doghouse. And I remember walking in the first day, coming in to train, and I walked in with Chris. Now, Chris and I knew each other from the music scene prior, because I've been in entertainment since I'm five. I did acting as a child star on Sesame Street and Romper Room, and then I went into years later. I went into music, and I was a drummer, and I went to school for drumming, and then I toured the world in music, and I got sick of being in a five-way marriage, and I went to the pro wrestling. So Chris was the singer of a band called Hostile Intent, and we both played heavier music. He was a lot heavier than we were, and I told him, I said, I'm thinking about going and training to become a pro wrestler. I was wondering if you'd be interested in going and checking it out with me. He's like, absolutely, let's go, and we'll do it, and we'll tag together. And we had no idea what to expect. And first day, Chris and I walked into the original Doghouse school, the training center, and what do you call it? There wasn't even. I mean, it was just no ring, no nothing. It was bare bones. Bobby Lombardi, rest in peace, had just opened up the place and was getting everybody started and getting everybody ready to sign up. And first thing you hear is he walks in, so you want to be a wrestler? Huh?" And what do you call it? Bobby, he was a funny guy. He was a good guy. He gave the shirt off his back to the boys, and he was trying to be a promoter. You know what I mean? And although he didn't train the boys, we had great trainers. Like I said, Homicide, Loki, what do you call it? Latham, what do you call it? Gino Caruso, the original, which is Super Colo from WCW, and he wound up working for TNA years later. And like, so it was an honor and a privilege to kind of come up in that school as one of the originals. And you never forget where you come from in general in life, but especially in the entertainment industry. It's important to remember where you came from and who you met along the way. And what do you call it? The doghouse, was always good to me. It was a hard road, and we were tough, man. People don't realize how tough the doghouse was, and being in such a what do you call it, a tough environment, man. It just made better workers. It made better wrestlers. And I am so glad that I did it. I mean, it kind of gave me the opportunity to become Brimstone. I was just Will before that, and becoming Brimstone has done a lot for me over the years. I've become my own brand, and it's been fantastic. I hope I answered your question.
And let's talk a little bit about the training because you were trained by some of the best, and
Yeah.
Homicide killed it as LAX, and I think he's better than ever. He apparently loves bleach, and that's code for everybody in ICW New York now. ICW No Holds Bar, and what he's doing there, and he's better than ever. Low Life Louie is working with Matt Tremont in H2O, and he trained you on several occasions. Low key, obviously, member of Triple X. Guy is fantastic. He can do anything and everything. And those are just some of the trainers. And you're friends with a bunch of these guys still. So, what was that like being trained by some of the best and what they're doing now? And they're still relevant, even though you're out of the wrestling business. But to even have that knowledge imparted into you, what was that entire circumstance like for you in your
Well,
training?
first and foremost, you're never fully out of the wrestling business. What do you call it? You're always in or dragged in some way, shape, or form. And I have very close ties to a lot of people in the industry still. Just because I'm not active doesn't mean that I'm not, involved in anything. But again, what do you call it? In terms of the training, you got to remember at that point, what do you call it? The boys, they were just kind of turning pro themselves. You know what I mean? And what do you call it? They were great. They were wait. When you step in the ring with somebody, or when you like, it's the same as like when you're in a band and you get behind a drum kit, or you put a guitar and strap on the guitar and plug it in, and there's just a vibe, and there are guys that that when you get in there, they're stars. You know that you can work with them. You know that they're going to be just you just know
Everything
that
clicked is the way it was
there's
described.
it's and every single one of them, what do you call it, has done very well for themselves. I mean, Homicide and Key, Louis has done a resurface. I think he ducked out for a little while. I'm not sure, but I know he's back, and he's working again. What great guys, man. Like, it's the thing is when we were doing it, it was still a brotherhood. You know what I mean? And there was, I mean, it's still a brotherhood, but the doghouse, I mean, we were brotherhood. And they were hard on us. They were rough on us. And what do you call it? Because you want to make sure that when somebody's coming out of your school or your dojo, you know what I mean, that you're going to be putting out the best product possible. And what do you call it? They were just fantastic, man. It was great to have had the opportunity to work with the guys that I had the opportunity to work with. Years later, I hadn't spoken to anybody in some time, and I'd been down to TNA because I was going to talk to Dixie at the time, and what do you call it? I went backstage, and I mean, it was nothing but love, from D, Homicide, and Key, and what do you call it, a whole bunch of the boys that I knew back there. And it was a great feeling, because I'm not gonna lie, when I went, I was a little nervous, and I wasn't sure what to expect per se. And what do you call it? But it was like, open arms, and very welcoming. And Gino was there, and so it was kind of like a reunion. You know what I mean? A LIWF reunion. And what do you call it? Those guys, I mean, they're still at the top of they're at the peak of their careers right now. I think that I can't say enough nice things about them. You know what I mean? That's the thing. You got to understand these are my people. You know what I mean? These are my people, and they're my boys. And doesn't matter how many miles are between us or how many years, they'll always be my boys, and that's that. So it was an amazing. To answer your question again, it was an amazing opportunity to learn from some of the best that are in the business. Does that make sense?
No, no, it makes a lot of sense. And one of the things that I think really kind of put you on the map is critical mass and what you did as a team breaking out of Long Island and that territory, going to build a promotion which was New York Wrestling Connection. And so, what was that like, and what was the formation of that? Because that kind of takes some balls to do that. Wrestling was different back in the 90s. And I know we're going back 20 years and a lot's changed,
Yeah.
but a lot hasn't in wrestling at the same time. And so, what prompted that, and what was that entire experience like, building out a promotion and then eventually adding a school onto it?
Well, one we wanted to do shows. We wanted to start doing the critical mass guys. I mean, we knew that Long Island was a market that needed to be kind of opened up and explored more, and there was a need for it on the island. And what do you call it? We did our first show was called Hotter Than Hell, which is funny because that was the day that I premiered on. I was on WWF Superstars. I remember us doing the show, and then Superstars was on, and then I was on the big screen inside, and that was an awesome feeling because all the boys were there for it, and it was small, it was a little bit thing, that we did, and at the end of the day, what do you call it? It was Hotter Than Hell. We did. It was the first NYWC show that, and Chris Hostel is the one who came up with NYWC, New York Wrestling Connection. And what do you call it? And I said to the boys, I'm like, we should open up a school. There's a need for it. We should open up a school. And Mayhem and I were full guns ahead. Hostel was on board, but what do you call it? He was going through some marital issues. The thing is that and again, I'm not gonna candy code anything. Should we have run out and opened up a school at that point? Probably not. You know what I mean? We were experienced, but we weren't necessarily like ready to open up, a pro wrestling school. It wasn't like we had like 20 years experience and we're like, okay, it's time to retire, settle down, and start teaching. We were like, no, let's build our own deal here. And when we did that, I think we inadvertently pissed off some people, which um, but back I was young, I was happy, I was, you know, you live, you learn. You know what I mean? And I should have tried to mend certain things in certain places when I was younger. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. I always still had a good relationship with Bobby, in the doghouse and the boys from the doghouse, because any event we did, we always made sure to have the core guys come back. So what do you call it? When we opened up the school, we opened up in 2001, and it was we did it in Hicksville, New York, on Long Island, and we put up about 15 students right off the bat. Mike and I, we went to the local mall, the Broadway Commons, which was the Broadway Mall then, and we handed out these flyers. I'll never forget the little blue flyers, and handed them out to people and said, "Yeah, you want to be a wrestler?" And kind of kind of went out and passed them out, handing them to people, and what do you call it? They started coming, and we had our first group of students, and they just kept building and building, and it was a thing, and I had some really good days at CMPW. What do you call it? The I was going through some things with my ex. What do you call it? I wound up having issues with one of the people that Mike and I brought in later on. We won't talk about all that. But he, what do you call it? He really tried pushing me out. And even though I still own a percentage of the company, I'll never see any part of it. But what do you call it? They try to erase that I was there, but that I'm the one that created the place. But that being said, it grew, and now some major names came out of NYWC. Some that I had a part in, and some that I didn't. And it's okay. But again, you should never forget where you came from, and never forget the people who helped you get there. So at the end of the day, a lot of my old students, still talk to me, and some don't. Some people, it is what it is. You know what? You get to a point in life, or in a career, where you just look at it and you go, oh well, their loss. Because I've always been a giving person. I've always tried to be a good person. I try to help lift people up, and the people that are trying to lock others down, or talk smack, or put people in a bad light. Those are the people that really have, they're the ones with the issues. They're the ones that have something to prove. you know and I have nothing to prove. I've already proved it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've already been there, done that, and let's move along. Let it go. Any garbage is in the past. I have no ill will. And it is what it is. So after that, I wound up going to PWR, which was one of my students, Johnny Ova, had opened up a school, and Johnny, and I had to sit down and we talked, and he's like, Brim, I could really use an extra pair of hands, and it would be really great if you'd be able to come and help me train the boys. So I went down, and I taught another whole crew of kids there. And then when PWR was closing down, internal things going on there had nothing to do with me. I was there teaching them for free. I was there out of the goodness of my heart, because it was something I wanted to do for Johnny. And the boys were great. I had a couple of good boys there. Again, people that have gone on and done big things. So obviously I did something right. I did something
Yeah,
right.
let's talk about PWR because you had some fun in PWR also with the Carnival of Destruction and that
Oh,
entire group and everything that went down with that. And I think Lou Valentino was in there, Demolition Blast was in there, Queen Yasmin was in there, your manager Raina Fry was in there, and
yeah,
you did some recruiting and you had a cool moment beating somebody down, and I thought it was theatrical brilliance in wrestling. And so there was a lot of
thank you.
fun stuff that went down in PWR with you, and also you got a title shot there. And so what was that like coming back into wrestling after almost a 5 year hiatus and a break, and then coming back in because 2002, for those who don't know wrestling history, was a very different era than 2007 in how things were being presented, how things were being done. You know, I think, and we could also say that from 2007 to 2015 was a different era as well, and now 2020 is a different era. But what was that like? Because things changed in the business in a lot of ways.
Well, I didn't, again, taking a hiatus from the ring, and what do you call it, and being involved, are two different things. Because I was still somewhat involved with a lot of different people. I still mentored a lot of people. I brought people that I out to meet what he called my trainers, and I brought people out to do some things, and kind of tried to help them along in their careers. So I wasn't completely out of the business. I just took a step away. But what do you call it, when I decided to get back into the ring, and what do you call it, I and starting to work with PWR. It was different. First of all, it was it had been a couple of years since I was active, so I had to get myself back into ring shape. I had a lot of ring rust, and what do you call it, I remember the first match back, I was working, I believe that. I don't, it was one of the students there, and what do you call it? We had a fun match, and I wound up. I don't know what was going on. I think I pumped myself up way too much, and getting ready for the match, and it was a full house, and right dab in the middle of the opening, I got a double Charlie horse. And I don't know what the hell happened, but I what do you call I worked through it, and but not many people were able to tell, especially since again I was just working off the ring rust. But it was an interesting event. What do you call it? I won that match. It was great that the first match that I came back was a win. Later on I wound up getting the tag championships, and what do you call it? It was a nice run at PWR. It was a good time, a lot of good boys, a lot of good workers came out of there, like I said. And yeah, the playground was different, but it's the same game. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
things change a little bit here and there, but it was still the same game. When you're thinking of people that there are people that have been active, for 30, 40 years, you know what I mean? And you see the changes and you kind of just, kind of go with the punches. You know what I'm saying? It's not like anything that was way too drastic, but the production was a lot nicer. You know what I mean? There were, I was lucky enough when I was working with like for Triple W and, a ton of other, MCW, all these different acronyms that you could possibly think of. I was working for big promotions at the time, before all that, and coming out like Mike and my first professional match, we did in front of a couple thousand people. You know what I mean? It was so we were spoiled. We were spoiled. So it's not like I was working like matches that I'm working against five, with five people in the audience, and it was never like that. Even at CMPW when we would do our events there. I mean, it was always a full house, so I don't think I ever wrestled for like, 10, 15 people in the crowd, like, so, it was, going to PWR it was another blessing because, they always had packed shows. It was always packed. The production, like I said, was much better than it had been prior because, again, things change. You know what I mean? They had different budgets and so forth. And I mean, now when you look at things that happened then, to things that are going on now, I mean, production value is off the charts. You know what I mean? It's like little movies that they're putting out now from the different, what do you call it? I'm sorry, the different promotions. So, again, it's was there a big difference? Not really. It was just more so like a change of scenery. You know what I mean? There was a different grouping of boys. I had a couple of people that I had, prior, that had been around. So, I had some of my old students who then became students again, or assistants and so forth. And again, I was there to help move kids forward. I wasn't there to move myself forward. I was there to move the kids forward. Because again, I was already on to doing other things. But what do you call it? I enjoy being in the ring. I enjoy, the physicality of it. I enjoy the entertainment value. I enjoy the out of ring drama, not the in ring drama. It was just back home. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense, and just to even further
I'm jumping
talk.
around.
What?
I said I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but I hope I'm making sense to you. You know what I mean?
No, no,
Like
it makes
there's
complete sense in which that at that point in your career, because we're going to talk about Hound Comics in a minute, because that was sort of starting and everything else was starting in wrestling. But what was that like? Because there are some selfish people in wrestling, and I'm not going to name names, but I know them, and a lot of fans know them. And it seems that you were being unselfish and putting people over or giving people knowledge that would benefit them at the start of their career versus in the middle of their career. And so That's what it seems like to me, if I'm accurately describing it.
Yeah, yeah. So it was, I was consistently working to help push people's careers forward, and that was always like the plan. That's why we opened the school. I mean, opening the school originally was specifically to ensure that we would leave a legacy. You know what I mean? I mean, if you really want to get technical, whether I've met them in person or not, most people that have come from the Long Island, New York, area, I've either worked with you, I trained you, I've worked an event with you, or you've worked somebody that I've done, I've trained, or I mean, or you came from my school, even whether I was there or not anymore. You know what I'm saying? So there's a tie to me, whether you like it or not, type of a thing. But what do you call it? Again, the industry is a very it's a lot. There's a lot of selfish people in the industry. It's a sad thing, but there are people that don't understand that it is a brotherhood, and you're supposed to be working to put other people over, and it's it is what it is. It is what it is. I love the business for what it was, not necessarily for what it is right now.
And let's talk about the industry because obviously COVID hit. Wrestling has been very much changed and impacted for health reasons. We have fanless shows occurring, which I think is smart. I don't feel comfortable going. A lot of other people don't feel comfortable going, and then we're not going to politicize the issue. But obviously, WrestleMania weekend and the entire week got canceled for the Indies, and so what do you think about wrestling in that regard and the changes and how business is going to change due to what happened and where it's going and where it's going to be at a safety position for both wrestlers? And I'm not so concerned about WWE or Impact or AEW, but I'm more concerned about the indies because a lot of those places can't afford to do fanless shows at the moment. And IWTV and Title Match Network and companies like that are very much saving those people in many ways.
I mean, wrestling is in the industry. One of your greatest assets are the fans. It's the audience. The people that are in the audience. Not only are they there to see you, but they're there to cheer the good guy, to boo the bad guy. You know what I mean? It's about feeling emotion, one way or another. It's about feeling emotion. When you go out into the ring to do business, and you're out there, if nobody's making a peep, you're doing something wrong. You know what I mean? So when you've got boys and girls going out there and they're working and there's nobody out in the crowd, um, you know, that's
Tough.
it's tough. It's tough. I'm a guy that likes to work off the energy of other people. Like even with the Grindhouse Radio, I have three other co-hosts rather, and what do you call it? I prefer working off of their energy. And it's all about energy and how you use it. And with COVID, people either they're not going out or they're not allowed to go out, or there's there are a lot of these smaller federations that they're not going to be able to do shows or legally run shows for quite some time. The safety of the boys now, some like we mentioned earlier, I think a lot of people out there have different views of what COVID is and what you should be doing, what you shouldn't be doing. But sports in general has been a big hotbed for people to get sick and get sick very easily, because you're either passing ball or what do you call it, or contact. You know what I mean? It's a contact sport.
Yep.
So, it's causing a lot of people to fall ill. It's happened with basketball, happened with baseball. I mean, football season, I believe, is starting. So you never know what's going to happen. So even with wrestling, with I believe it was WWE, a couple of the boys wound up coming down with COVID. And again, it's doesn't matter how much you test, doesn't matter what you're doing. This is a disease that is going to come at you. And it doesn't care who you are, what you're doing, what color your skin is, what religion you are. Doesn't matter. It's going to come for you. And when it does, it's going to suck tremendously. So when you're putting people in a ring together and they're face to face, and down on the mat and working, you're taking the chance of getting something. And that can spread really quickly through a locker room. And the indies, they don't have the budgets per se. Some might, but for the most
Very
part, from what
few,
I
very few companies have it. GCW has it. Beyond Wrestling has it. There's
yeah.
some on the West Coast that have it, but a company, I'm trying to think of a company off the top of my head, doesn't have it, And we look at a company like St. Louis Anarchy. They were supposed to have a show 2 weeks ago, and St. Louis Anarchy, which is where they're located, was a stage 2, and now they're to a stage 4. And they canceled for the safety reasons of not just their wrestlers, but their fans too. Because I think that's the other concern is that, and I think people forget a lot of time in the wrestling business that the wrestlers are at risk, and so are the fans, so are the staff. So, especially at the indies, a lot of these places take place in a bar or a brewery, or they might take place in a park or a theater sometimes, and there's staff that works there too. So it's not just the wrestlers anymore. There are people also involved in this beyond wrestling. And so I think it's a real safety concern, and then it goes beyond economics.
It's been rough, and it's been like that for a lot of for everybody in entertainment. How are you going to have concerts? How are you going to have comedy shows? How are you going to have um, just anything? So when you're talking about something, when you're in full contact with people, half of a gimmick of a heel is to be yelling things to the crowd. You know what I mean, and getting into people's faces. I mean, so how are you going to do that? You can't do your job properly. And at the end of the day, like I said, even the best case scenario where you've got people with money that can do some kind of separation and so forth, it just diminishes what the business was built on. So I believe that there are some places that might close down because of it, but just like any other businesses. But you also got to understand that most people that run promotions, that's not their main source of income. So they might just say, okay, well, we're going to put that on hold for a while, and then the only people that are going to suffer are the boys, and who they rely on working to make that extra dough. Most of them have what do you call it? Most of them have regular jobs. I mean, if they have a shoot job, you know what I mean, then they're making their money elsewhere, and they don't mind making whatever they're making at the promotions, and everybody's gravy. But for somebody like me, who I've worked for myself, I don't work for other people. And when I was wrestling, and I had a career based around wrestling. You know what I'm saying? So I
Yep.
made my money from wrestling, and building a fan base, and selling product and so forth. And I've been blessed to have had a good audience that has taken care of me over the years. And it is what it is. If the boys are doing their job, and they're out there and they're working and using the internet to their advantage, to which I didn't necessarily have at the beginning of my career, they would have, what do you call it, they're able to take it and flip it, and actually develop a fan base right offline. You know what I mean? And utilize old clips, photos, whatever they have. I wish I had half this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, I back when, are you kidding me? First of all, most of the time, if we were lucky enough to get copies of the matches, which I never, how often did I get copies of matches? Very rarely. And when we did, be on a VHS cassette. So, what do you call it? One, I mean, Mayhem's been trying to grab some of the old tapes that he has, but he lost a whole ton of them because when he moved, he lost a bunch of them. The tapes go bad. What do you call it? They crap happens, moves, years, and so forth. And even if you have a couple, then you got to figure out how to convert them. So, I wish I had, like I have some stuff like from later on, like PWR and different things like that. I have more of simply because we had more technology to use. But I didn't have that technology back when. That's I wish I would have had that. I would have had
Yeah.
a ton of great content to use. But the boys and girls now, they have everything at their fingertips. You have a phone, will travel. You have an iPad. You have a, you know what
Called
I'm saying? Like
TikTok. It's called
you can do
TikTok.
anything. And the thing is that if I can do it, if this one could do it, if that, so can you. You just gotta sit and you gotta put your 200% in, and what do you call it? Once you put that 200% in, you'll get 100% out of it. You know what I mean? And that's what it takes. And if people don't put the 200% into it, they can't expect to get 100% out of it. You know what I mean? So if you put in 100%, you're only going to get 50%. So you're not going to get back what you've put in. And it's very important for people to understand that. That's why people sit and they bitch and moan and complain, or they look at somebody, like I don't know if I said it's on air or off air, but you're not going to get anywhere by looking at what's on somebody else's plate. You know what I mean? And the fact of the matter is if I have, doesn't matter if I have a bigger, juicier steak and some delicious potatoes and some, you know what I mean, some string beans on the side, maybe a couple of shrimps. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Looking at my plate and hating on my plate because I'm eating bountifully, okay, does not mean that you can't eat that way too. It means stop hating on the way I'm eating and do it for yourself. Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Let's talk a little
like
bit
I
about
said,
that.
if you're too if you're a lot of the boys, they get so wrapped up into what other people are doing or what they have, or what their successes or failures are, that they forget to work on themselves. So maybe they're okay working a shoot job, maybe they're okay sitting and taking orders from somebody else or doing whatever. It is what it, me personally, I will. Oh, I'm Brimstone. I built the name. I built the brand. I'm outside of wrestling as well as within wrestling. I own the trademark on the name. How many people can say they own the trademark on their names? You know what I mean? Most people can't because they don't understand the business aspect. So if they worked on the business aspect, they worked on building their own brand, they would have something that they'd be able to eat that nice fat steak off of.
And
You,
let's
you know
talk
what
about
I mean?
that. Let's talk about that because this is why I wanted to bring up the wrestling point. And this was what I was concerned about completely building this interview is that you have built that brand. You own your trademark and you've built a business. I don't want to say on top of wrestling, but in association with wrestling. And wrestling opened that door. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth, so correct me if I'm wrong. But clearly, you started something in 2005 with Hound Comics, which is Hound Entertainment Group, I believe, as well. I'm not exactly sure which owns what, but that's a big group that you've done a lot of stuff with. And so, what is that like for you that you've now gone into a whole new industry outside of wrestling and are killing it writing comics and producing children's books? And we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about this, but obviously the Grindhouse Radio is associated. I think you got hot sauce and mustard in there too. I don't know if you've done beer yet. I mean, is that on the table?
No, I've been asked, but I have not done any beer because I'm not a big beer drinker. So I felt like it was not a move that I necessarily wanted to make. But I did have conversations with some root beer companies, which never produced the product. Sadly enough, because I really would love to do a good root beer. But that being said, yeah, like Hound Comics, I had wanted to put out a comic. I figured, what's the next best step from pro wrestling, and something I'd be able to take my gimmick, take my character, and move forward with it, and build on what I've already built. Because again, it's about moving forward, not moving backwards. So, you know, essentially, I figured, well, what's better than taking a character that is, because wrestlers in general are real life superheroes. You know what I mean? So why not take the Brimstone character and build it into a superhero? And I've always liked comics, and comics was one of my first loves. And I used to want to be an artist, and what do you call it? I wound up skipping that and wound up going into music, and that's what I did for a long period of time before wrestling. But things always come full circle. So I what do you call it? I said, the Brimstone character is fun. I'm a gimmick guy. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a high flyer. I never was in the ring. I was able to, I did like top rope elbow and, a couple of big moves here and there from the top rope, but that wasn't my thing. You know what I mean? I was a
Yeah.
gimmick guy, power moves, and being able to use the stick. And what do you call it? Mike did all the high flying. That was his thing. So that being said, I had a very good, clear, concise idea of who my character was and, what we needed to do to kind of put it into a format of, comic book. So I had to enlist somebody because I didn't think that I'd be able to do it completely by myself. And I contacted my buddy Marcello, who, what do you call it, was Lord Clarence McDougal in what do you call it, the wrestling scene. He was also a Long Island Wrestling Federation, LIWF original, Doghouse original. And what do you call it? Him and I sat down, and I known him for years, and I asked him. I said, March, would you come sit down? I want to talk some things out with you. And we went to sit down for a cup of coffee in a diner that was supposed to be maybe a 45-minute hour meeting. We were there for like three and a half, 4 hours, and we wrote out the entire basic Bible of what Brimstone and the Border Hounds would then become. And what do you call it? We put together the comic. I put it together a team, an amazing unknown artist at the time, Sajad Shah, who now, thanks to the Brimstone and the Border Hounds brand, has gone on to do stuff for Ninja Turtles, Batman, Marvel, DC, IDW, the whole nine yards. So Sajad is a big player now. What do you call it? And Alan Chickering was the original inker. Thiago Castro was our colorist out of Brazil. And what do you call it? I mean, like, when I say, we put a really cool team together, and we wrapped up issues 1 through 4, and what do you call it? We wound up doing a launch. Oh my God, I think it was October something in 2010, maybe. I don't remember what year it was, to be completely honest, off the top of my head. But we did a release in Borders Books. But I don't know if you remember Borders Books, but Borders Books was a
Back
big,
in the
big,
day. It's
yeah.
old
So we did
school. Only
Borders,
people who read understand this. There was 2 book
right.
companies back in the day, everybody. There was 2.
Well, Borders and Barnes and Noble, and Walden Books. Walden Books was around too, but we were in Walden. We were in Borders Books. We did the launch, and we put it out. Hound Comics and Brimstone of the Border Hounds issue 1. We did a big signing there, the whole nine yards. It was a lot of fun. And then what do you call it? We took it out and took it on the road, and I was able to use my name to get us into all of the conventions. So what do you call it? I would levy, my name in terms of getting space at the different cons. So we wound up getting a lot of traction on the convention circuit. And I remember, what do you call it? Just continuing to build and build and build, and the comic company became pretty popular. We wound up. I was in Manhattan doing a Gotham Con, a Big Apple Con. I don't remember which one it was at some point,
Probably
and
Big Apple. Big Apple by the garden.
might have been Big. I don't remember which. It was. It was a smaller version of it, but I think Mike Carbo, who is
It's
the
Big Apple. It's
promoter,
Big Apple.
Big Apple.
Yeah,
No, but
Big
he
Apple.
he had other shows also, and I'm pretty sure it was his show. But it's neither here nor there. We were in this celeb room, which was a smaller room because it wasn't the Big Apple show that they did right before right before they were bought out by Wizard. But uh, it was myself, a couple other players in there, and right next to me was friends of mine, Pete and Angie Mayhew, who I hadn't seen in years. You know what I mean? Since I was doing other conventions, and doing wrestling things. So what do you call it? So I bumped into Peter and Angie, and we were sitting and talking, and what do you call it? And Angie, which is Peter's wife. Do you know who Peter Mayhew is?
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah.
Peter Mayhew is Chewbacca from Star Wars. For
Yep,
anybody
yep,
who
yep,
doesn't.
yep. I know exactly who he is. Yep.
So Angie said, she goes, Brim, I really love what you're doing with the comics, and they look great, and you are always so good at promoting and doing your thing. We have our kids' books that Peter wrote, and we want to put them out, but what do you call it? The publishing company that we were working with wasn't so great. Do you think that you might be able to do something with this? I'm like, well, Angie, it's just kind of us right now, but maybe it's an opportunity. Who knows? So what do you call it? I spoke with them a little bit further, and then I spoke with some other friends who did stuff for Disney or who did stuff for Nickelodeon and so forth, and they were all like, well, can we put our books through you? Can we put our books through you? So I'm like, well, I guess now is the time to do something. And Hound Comics Inc. was born. We incorporated, and what do you call it? We built the Hound Comics brand, the Hound Kids brand, Hound Publishing brand. We branched off the Food Hounds from there. And it was became a thing, man. We did some amazing work, and we were the only company outside. We were the only company that was able to use the Chewbacca brand without having to pay royalties back to Lucasfilms, because George Lucas himself gave the okay for Peter to not have to pay the royalties for using the character in the kids' books. So, what do you call? I have it somewhere, but it's like the paper and everything. But so it was a very, very cool thing, and rest in peace, Peter. I love that man a lot. I love Angie, his wife, and what do you call it? I was in the documentary for Peter as well. So, like I said, we go back a ways, and that was the start of Hound Comics. So had I not been with Pete and Ange, and they didn't say, hey, Brim, can you do this and maybe work with us on it? Hound might not have ever happened. So yeah, now we wound up having like over 20, 30 books with the comic side, and then another 15 on the kids book and publishing side. And it was crazy. But we did the Brimstone and the Border Hound stuff based off the Brimstone character. When Borders books closed or were starting to close, we pulled the biggest stunt that I could possibly think of at that point to kind of be like, we're a player. And I pulled out of the Borders books, and then we went and we released in every single Barnes and Noble and B. Dalton there was in the entire country. And that was a difficult feat. And even though it was probably what really kind of struck a nerve in the industry, and that's what really kind of pushed us to another level. What do you call it? It also, uh, I think, was a big mistake in terms of we spent way too much money, and invested too much in what Barnes Noble was demanding, because at the time they were going through a distributor. There was a distributor that we had to deal with to go into Barnes and Noble, and they were ordering these ridiculous numbers, and you had to
Yeah.
do the numbers that they asked, and our readership was not necessarily to those numbers, but it wasn't low either. We had a really nice readership. It was just we had to figure out, you know what I mean, what was going to be the P&L. We didn't know what the loss was going to be, and you know we figured, okay, well, just like any books, if they don't sell, all right, well, if they don't sell, we'll get them back. You know what I mean? And we'll be able to repurpose them or something. But they refused. The distribution company refused to send any of the books back. So every month we were losing, 50,000 books. You know what I'm saying? And we were paying a higher price than a Marvel and a DC, and you know what I mean? Like, we were paying a higher price, so we couldn't. It was so hard for us to keep up with that demand, even with our sponsors and advertisers and so forth. It was so hard to keep, that grind up, that we eventually were like, I said, I got to pull the plug on Barnes and Noble, because they're not giving us the product back that doesn't sell. Because when you're asking for, 250,000 pieces, you know what I mean, and then there's at least 50 to 75,000 every month that aren't selling. Think about the money that you're losing. Okay, so and again, and the percentage that you get is tiny. You know what I mean,
I
from
know, I
that
know.
industry.
My mom just wrote a book, and her royalty is not great on it. So
Very small money,
very,
even though the publisher, very small amount of money, and it barely covered the costs. But it was, again, it was to continue to build the brand, to continue to build it, and show, hey, we're here to play. And it was a risk we took. We won, and then we pulled. But that was after, I think we put like 6 issues out through Barnes and Noble, with the re-release of issue 1. And the biggest thing was, when I spoke to them, what killed me was, we had been trying to have them take the comics that were not sold, and I was trying to work out, because remember, I'm always trying to give back and do and so forth. I was like, don't send them back to me. I'll take the hit on it. We'll take the loss, but have them picked up and send them to the military, or to, kids' homes, or, like, orphanages, or, you know what I mean, anything where it will help, you know what I mean, people, that they can get
yeah.
something from it, and we'll be okay with that. Like, we're okay with it. But they refused to do it. They wouldn't do the pickups, and it was just way too much, and it made no sense financially. So we pulled the plug on that, and it is what it is. But Hound, is we're still doing things where, I'm on a brief hiatus from Hound, simply because I've got so much going on with the Grindhouse Radio and the Brimstone brand, that I have no time to really take to spend on Hound the way I had spent on Hound. The Grindhouse Radio has blown up so much, over the last 5 years, that, we've just, it's become, my main, deal. Even though, like I said, and you might know, like, I do a lot of acting and voiceover work, and appearances and so forth. But, like, when I'm home and I'm not touring and I'm not on set, I'm in my studio. You know what I mean? I'm here. I'm
Yeah.
doing. I'm active, because, again, if you're not active, doesn't matter how much success you've had. If you don't stay active and you don't continue to
If you
build
don't
and work,
produce content, you become
yes,
irrelevant. It's
irrelevant.
a blunt statement. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It's a problem I have, and then this is how I started my entire thing on Facebook Live, because my first show. Right now, I'm backlogged editing 30 episodes, and I was
Oh, wow.
becoming irrelevant, and so I had to do something. And so now I'm not as irrelevant as I was 5 months ago.
Right.
And so
It's good.
that's something that's very true. And content creation is very complicated. And
It's a different thing. Again, you got to understand, now I'm an old dog now in a new world where, I just turned 46. I've got, we're talking about the digital world, and people consume, like this, with content. So, and people are lazy. They don't necessarily sit and like, and this, or share, or whatever. So, you've got to navigate that. And, we, GHR does an amazing job. We have a fantastic crew. We have our studios, our office, our green room, what do you call it? And, we've won the last 4 years. We're based on Long Island. We've won the best radio station on Long Island title the last 4 years in a row, which is an amazing feat, considering we're a 2-hour show once a week. You know what I mean? Like, so we've beat all the AM FM terrestrial radio stations, which, I mean, that's humbling. It's a very humbling thing. We've built up our listenership to be tremendous. We get amazing guests because I know a lot of people in the industry. I'm friends with many people from all different areas, because again, when I go out and I'm meeting people, I'd like to think that people appreciate my authenticity. Like, I hate fake people. I hate fakeness.
Nope.
I'm all about being real. You know what I mean?
That's how I get
And
guests. That's exactly how I get guests. I mean, I've shared people who've been on your show have been on mine. It's because I'm real and then I'm honest and it's probably easier for you, but I just ask and I'm very polite and I just keep asking and I'm authentic and authenticity matters so much. I mean,
authentic.
and you're a great guy because we're going to talk about some of the stuff that you've done, but let's talk about the Grindhouse Radio because we're already on that topic, and obviously you're killing it with it. I think you're what, like ranked number 20 in certain sectors on iTunes now.
We were in and out. We were on the charts for a little over a year straight. We were highest at number 6 in the world, which was stupid. I mean, we're just a group of guys and gals having a good time and putting out some fun stuff.
So what is that
You
like to be
like,
number 6? Because obviously Rogan's up there, and you're in good company for lack of a better word.
yeah, it was a little shocking. It was a very shocking thing, to where we kind of didn't necessarily even believe it at first. And then we looked and we're like, well, yeah, it's there. Then we got the pictures. And it was humbling. That's the best word I can use for it. It was very humbling. We were legitimately shocked. We didn't see it coming. We knew we had numbers. We knew that we had people that listened and followed. And listen, anytime you're having success or doing well or have something positive, there's always going to be naysayers and people that are like, they're full of crap and blah blah blah. It's like, well, if you looked at the charts and you see this here, well, this is where we were, and this is what's going on. And here there's a nice big. You're from the New York area, Newsday. There's a full page, article on me and GHR in Newsday, talking about the numbers and our financials and so forth. So, like, I mean, obviously we're doing something right. Just like, people are so insecure with their own business and their own lives. They always got something to say. Score, we won the Score small business championships a few years back. Like, so we've done a lot, and we're still doing. And if I took you around my office, and the walls were adorned with citations from a ton of the different politicians on the right side, the left side, the middle, doesn't make a difference. You know what I mean? We work with everybody. We try to be caring to everybody. We try to do the right thing by everybody. And yeah, I mean, we've just done some really cool things. And to think, it was funny because the first time we sat down to do this, it was Kim Madragna and Steve Zambito, and Tom Greer. But Kim and Steve actually started as my interns at Hound. And what do you call it? And they had a radio background in history. And I said, you know what? I think that it would be cool if we tried this. What do you guys think? And we sat down behind one mic after hours in the old Hound offices. And what do you call it? We started and we went through an hour, and it was just, I hate to say, do the cliche thing and cheesy thing and say it was magic, but it was magic and it worked. And we said, you know what, this is something. And we continued. And 5 years later, Kim has won, Long Island 30 under 30. I've gotten best celebrity personality on Long Island for 2 years straight. I think Billy Joel, for God's sakes, you know what I mean? Billy Joel had it for X amount of years before I got it. And just like, what do you call it, BAB, which they're amazing. They're friends of mine. I love them. But what do you call it? They had for 7 years the best radio station on the island until we won in 2017. So, like, we've earned our spot. You know what I mean? We've earned it. And like it's just we just yeah, it's been a really cool ride. This week, if anybody is wants to listen, Thursdays 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What do you call it? You can get it on any of your what do you call it networks that you listen to podcasts on. But we're iHeart and all that jazz. You can go to my website, therealbrimstone.com. The Grindhouse Radio website is actually almost done being completely re-updated and renovated because it was just a mess. So the new site is amazing. So when you guys get a chance to check that out soon, within the next week, it should be up. But what do you call it? But this Thursday we have Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC, and he was Chip Skylark for those of you who know Fairly Odd Parents. So some people might know both, some people know one or the other. But what do you call
One
it?
of them
So
is
that
more
was
important than the other. One of them is more important than the other. I'm not
well,
going to say which.
Chip Skylark is a huge thing. It's a huge thing. So but he's a great guy. Last week we had Billy from Biohazard. The week before that we had Richard Grieco. You know what I mean? So like it's all different people. Fred Corey from Cinderella. Like you gotta if you haven't checked us out, please do. You know what I mean? I think you'll have a good time. It's pop culture talk. Charles Martinet, who's the voice of Mario, Luigi, and Wario, and a ton of others from Nintendo, is a very close friend of mine. He was on a few weeks ago. Again, it's just a matter of going to the site. Please wait about a week, and then you'll get to and you'll see a much better experience. But if you go on even IMDb, you can see all the people that we've had on and actually, go back and listen to the old episodes. It's a fun show. You know what I mean? It's a really fun show. Cool vibe, good people. I love my partners, and I can honestly say that I'm the happiest in terms of my business partnerships and relationships right now, more so than I've ever been in the past. So I'm in a really nice place. I'm happy. And that's where we're at right now.
And I do want to talk about something because we were speaking about authenticity. And one of the things that I think people might know about you is that you have a very interesting relationship with Stan Lee. And you do a lot of charity work that involves his foundation and what he was putting out with children literacy. And it goes back to that Barnes and Noble situation, sending the books to somebody who actually wants to read it and to encourage reading to some degree, and also give to people who might not have that opportunity. And so, what was that like? Because obviously, you were spotlighted by Stan Lee talking about building the brand, and you do a lot of other charity work, but I think that's kind of something that really stands out highly.
Well, Stan was a good friend. We had met years ago. Matter of fact, the funny thing is we were introduced by another friend of mine, Jose Hernandez Jr. from he was on HBO's Oz, he was on Law and Order, he's on Gotham, and we were in Pittsburgh, I think, and I was there, I was signing, and what do you call it? And Jose was like, I'm gonna bring a friend over, I want to introduce him to you. So he brought Stan over, and I was like, all right, it's Stan Lee. Wow, okay. And at that moment, if you would have told me that I would ever been, sitting and having a casual conversation with Stan Lee, I would have probably told you were crazy. And then turning into a friendship, which had spanned over the course of many years after that, to the point where I was appointed the one of the celebrity oh my god, I'm sorry. I'm sad because we're talking about Stan and he's gone. What do you call it? But for I'm one of the people that goes out and talks about the foundation, and Stan was very near and dear to me. I'm still choked up about it. Obviously, he's been gone for a while now. It's one thing about being in this industry and knowing people and becoming friends with the people that you've looked up to. They're also getting up there, and you lose a lot along the way. So, but I was asked to be the celebrity spokesperson for his foundation, the Stan Lee Foundation, and I did a lot of stuff with the Stan Foundation, and what do you call it? Speaking about literacy and children, and I did a lot of it, on my own time, and other times where they asked me to come through and do stuff specific for them, and it was an honor and a privilege to be able to do a lot of stuff with him, and be there with him, and get to go into his office and sit in his seat and pick on him, and have a good time with him. And that was, he was a great guy. He was fun. He was the most with it old guy you'll ever meet. And Yeah, so it's very sad. I lost him, my mother, and a couple other people, like all around the same time. So it was a very rough patch. You know what I mean? So I apologize for getting a little bit emotional over it.
And we'll talk about something a lot more positive because you got a lot of product stuff out there. And one of the
Yeah.
coolest things is Big Bang. And I'm a Big Bang fan. I love Sheldon. And your backpack was on Big Bang, was hanging up there. And there's a lot of cool stuff with that. So what was that like? Because that was there
So
for like 5 seasons, I think, or close to it, right?
yeah, we started in like the seventh season, and it went on until it ended. Big Bang was very good to me. What do you call it? They reached out and they're like, Brim, what do you call it? Chris Harwood over there was, he was in the set designing area, and he reached out, he's like, Brim, I'd really love to have some of your memorabilia and some of your stuff that we can use, on set. Would you be able to send us a couple of things? And I was like, sure. So I loaded up this huge box, which they thought I was going to send them like a couple of signed comics or something. I sent them the sauces, my seasonings, my backpacks. I made sure to send extra for the crew and the cast, and I sent, what do you call it, the comics. I sent, you name it, I sent it, and whatever I had at the time. And what do you call it? Then my backpack became Kutrapali's main backpack that was always in his apartment. So, which was also sold in Walmart for many years and still is, as far as I know. But what do you call it? That was on the back of his door until he moved out of his apartment. But once he had moved out of and also, if you watch closely, it's in the background, so you really can't see it very well. But my sauces and seasonings are in Leonard's and what do you call it? Sheldon and Leonard's apartment, as well as in what do you call it? A couple of the other apartments. You could see them in the background, and when they open up the fridge, you could see it in the fridge. My barbecue sauce was in the fridge. My sauce and seasonings were, in the kitchen side. Then, what do you call it? I went out and when I was out signing for, was it when I was signing? I was signing. It was either when I was signing at San Diego, or doing something. No, 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 no. I was out there doing another appearance. I don't remember what it was for. But I wound up going uh, out there, and I had visited at the time, because my chocolate bars were out over in, what do you call it, at Sweet Hollywood. I created the chocolate bars with them. They had a bunch of celebrity chocolate bars there, and Stan's people introduced me to them. So that's why I was in that chocolate place, because they had a big area with all Stan stuff, all Brimstone stuff. What do you call it? That's another whole story altogether. Elvira, so Cassandra's stuff was there, and RuPaul, and it was just a crazy, crazy place. Really cool. But I had some of the chocolate bars with me, and I was there doing an appearance. So when I went with more goodies for them, and I brought some of the Brimstone collectible vinyls. What do you call it? I brought with me some, what do you call it? Some of the chocolate bars, some Grindhouse Radio backpacks, some oh my god, oh, my coffee line, and some other things. I don't remember everything, but while I was there, he walked around and some more comics and signed stuff. And while I was there, they walked around and they placed it into the set and showed me, but there are some things that they purposely put in when I wasn't there, and they said you'll have to look for it and find it, and I still haven't been able to find it. So I don't know if they were just screwing with me or it was there, but I'm well represented. So in the comic book shop, in later seasons, what do you call it? You can see the little Brimstones are moving around behind. up on the right behind the counter. You'll see me bouncing around there. You'll see my, my mug, because they used the for issue 9 of the Brimstone of the Border Hounds comic. What do you call it? They used the alternate cover for the wall, so you'll see my face on the wall because it was nice and big, so you'd be able to see it. And they did a lot. They took very good care of me. They were very good people, and it was an honor and a privilege to be a part of that, and to be able to go down to the set, meet and greet with people, and get to see how everything was done. It was funny. One fun story was while they were showing me around the set, because that had been the first time that I've been to the set. I live in New York, and they weren't always filming when I was out. So I remember going to sit down. I'm sorry, touring into the apartment, Sheldon and
Leonard.
uh, Leonard's apartment, and everything had been kind of like covered because they weren't filming that day. And Chris says to me, he goes, "So, want to sit in the couch?" I was like, "The couch?" I said, "Really?" And he's like, "Yeah." I go, "Yeah, but it's covered up. I don't want to bother you." He goes, "No, no, no, no. I'll open it for you." So he went over, he opened up the couch. I was like, "All right, this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity here." And he goes, "So you want to take a seat? Take a seat. I'll take some pictures." And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fun." So I went to sit, and as I'm sitting, he goes, "No, no, 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 no. You need to sit in Sheldon's spot." So I sat in Sheldon's spot, and I got all cozy, and we got some pictures of that, and that was a lot of fun. And yeah, they do tours of the set and everything, but never did people get to sit on the furniture and go into the back areas and the rooms. And it was a really cool opportunity to get to see the entire set and how everything operates, and it was just a really really cool opportunity to do all that. And I was able to take some pictures. Of course, I didn't put them out because at the time they were still running. It was none of anybody's business of what was going on back there, but maybe one day I'll put some of them out, just for people to see, because they stopped at this point. But it was a lot of fun. I've been blessed to be able to do a lot of things in my career and meet a lot of people, and um it was that was just one of those cool things. You know what I mean? That how many people can say, "Oh, look, there I am," in it represented on The Big Bang Theory and multiple, accounts. The only other characters that have been, spread across that so much have been, what do you call it, like Batman and the DC Comics,
I wonder why. I wonder
characters.
why. There wouldn't
Well, I know
be
what.
there wouldn't be a connection there now, would there?
What, with DC?
It's a joke. It's a joke.
Oh, sorry.
They're
Sorry.
owned by the same company.
Oh, true. I got you. But no, they actually tried getting Marvel stuff in for it because they wanted to have an honest blend in there. I know the whole story, but Marvel, they wouldn't
It was
give the
yeah.
product.
It
They
was
wanted licensing and everything for it. So um, it is what it is. But it was a lot of fun to go there, and had a good opportunity, and yeah, yeah, it's fun.
and we're gonna change gears slightly before I give you a chance to promote yourself and everything that you're doing. But I am curious because we spoke about it with the wrestling side. I know we're taking a hard left. I know we're taking a hard left with this because it's going to be a little bit depressing. But obviously, Comic Cons are shut down, and San Diego was done. I think New York
Yeah,
Comic Con is done. I know Emerald City got canceled, and that kind of is what kicked this entire train off. And it feels literally like 10 years ago. And everything in between now is shut down, except in Florida. I just had somebody on like 3 weeks ago who was at a con in Florida, and not to politicize anything, but it was like maybe like 2,000 people at the most, and it was very spacious, and it was an experiment for lack of a better word. But I am curious how that has affected you because I know you do a lot of cons and conventions, a lot of brand awareness, a lot of appearances. And then where do you think it's going? Where do you think it's going to come back? What do you think it's going to look like? Because I have my own opinions on all of this. And I'll just state how I feel, where I don't feel comfortable right now going to a con for at least another year,
Yeah.
if not more. I mean, the earliest I would go is April, and that's even risking it and throwing it out there. And that's how I don't feel comfortable. And there were several cons that I was supposed to go to that I was speaking at for free, might I add, because I enjoy doing it. But I didn't feel comfortable going to them. And there's like 30,000 people, so I'm just curious your view on all of this.
Um, well, it's a slippery slope because you don't know what's coming. You don't know what's going to happen. We still really aren't through the first wave of this. I'm sure we're going to get hit with the second wave. And albeit we can somewhat protect ourselves a little bit in these environments if we are all smart. There are some people that refuse to kind of abide by rules and regulations. So, it's kind of like, if everybody can't play nice, we can't play at all. So that's a big problem. One big thing is a lot of the promoters who are doing the shows, what do you call it? Due to regulations, they can't have the amount of people at the conventions that they'd normally be able to have. That being said, they won't be able to fund the what do you call it, the conventions like they have in the past
Yeah.
because again it comes down to dollars and cents, and they need to make a profit because it's a lot of work. They need to make a profit, and if they're paying out more than what they're able to bring in,
and,
statistically.
and, and not to get the weeds dirty, I have an entire article on my website on con economics and how that all works. And so I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole, but there is an entire process, and I'm sure you're well aware of it on how all that works. And that's why your
Yeah,
ticket is expensive. That's why tickets to cons are $100. It's a bit more complicated than people realize.
it is. And you've got some of these cons that they're bringing in a multitude of different guests, and people's guarantees or numbers are all over the place. Some are off the charts, some aren't. And they're trying to bring in the people that are going to bring more traffic in. But now, if you're going to think about it, the more the bigger name now that they're going to want to get that costs more to bring in, they're not going to be able to hit those numbers because they're not going to be able to bring in as many people that they would normally be bringing in at a con. You see what I'm saying? So if they would normally bring in 2,000 people, well, they're only going to be able to bring in 750 or what do you call it, or 1,000 people rather than the full 2,000. So like there's no way for them to make the money back. You know what I mean? For covering everything from guarantees to flights to hotels
And,
to
and
the overhead of the location itself.
And to even go
Um,
further, there's also the contract with the dealer's room and all of those people where if you're not even a guest, but you're a dealer, and normally you would have 20,000 people walking across you're to sell to, and now you have 10,000. That's a big issue, and tables are expensive, and I'm sure you know all about that too. Where now, if you have less people to sell to, and let's say you're just going to a con as a guest, and you have Hound Comics, and you have your table, if you have 50% less to sell to, that affects you as well. And so I think that's another thing to put into place to
yeah,
talk about.
it totally affects the vendors. I do not go to events as a vendor. What do you call it? Ever. Even when I was going in under Hound, I was brought in as a guest, and what do you call? I would just have my
Yeah.
Hound stuff set up. But what do you call? Normally, that's how I make a living. I mean, I sign at conventions. I'm paid a fee to come in, just like any other celeb, and I'm paid for different things that it gives me the opportunity to go. So, and the opportunity for them to have me there. And, you know, I I don't see them having the money to spend that they had, prior to this. They're not going to have the same foot traffic. They're not going to have the same interest anyway, because people are not going to want to necessarily all be going out. And the people that are going to want to go out to it, and I'm not saying all of them, please don't get me wrong here, but the what do you call it? A lot of people that are like, I don't care, I'll go out, I'll go do this, are the people that are not giving a crap about wearing masks or keeping it, under control, like some of them think it's a hoax. Those are the people that are also being loose around other people who are being loose around other people, and that gives it a bigger opportunity to spread again. So those are the type of people that you're going to wind up having. Not that they're bad people, they're just misguided. You know what I mean? And the fact is they're going to go to an event, and then they're going to spread it, and then you've got X,
You're
Y,
gonna get
and
you
Z that are all
sick.
going to.
You're gonna get you sick. You don't want to be sick, right?
No, and that's the thing. And look, I'm older. I'm not necessarily fit. You know what I mean? Where I'm completely out of the water. There.
Yeah, yeah. We're still good. We're still good. We're still alive. We're all good.
Sorry about that. What do you call it? So there are people that are out there that are doing these cons that are much older than I am, that have been in the industry for a while, that, whether they're voice actors or actors or whatever they do. And, they are not young and healthy, and they could get sick, and we can lose them. You know what I mean? So again, it's a risk. It's going to be a risk. I think that COVID's going to have changed the landscape of conventions for quite some time. I don't see cons getting back till maybe the end of 2021, if we're lucky. And it's going to really be bad because, again, people like myself and your favorite actors and actresses and wrestlers and voice people and so forth, these are all we all that's how we make a living outside of what
People
we
like me. I'll even add this in. I go to a con and I present a panel. I get a free ticket, which reduces my costs because I run something very small. My entire expenditure to what I do is less than $500 a year, and I'm self-funded. I have no income coming in, or I have very little income coming in. But when I go to a con, I get a free ticket, and I actually build my brand. And I hand out business cards, and I sign people up for an email list, and all sorts of fun stuff like that. And so for me, a con is an amazing opportunity for me to network and gain
Mm-hmm.
fans and introduce people because most people don't know who I am. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, it's devastating and I'm not getting paid for it. And so
Yeah.
I'm getting hit hard because I'm trying to grow my brand and expand. I like getting stuff signed and I like supporting artists and I try to get interviews that way. And I'm successful at pitching in person and I'm pretty good at it and it's effective. And so for me, this is hitting me hard. And I can't imagine what it's like if this is your living.
Yeah. It's tough. It's very tough. You know, um, we've all had conversations about it. Like I said, I've been in the industry for a long time. I have a lot of friends in very high places, and right up from to the very top. You know what I mean? We all have the same concerns and the same issues, and you know what I'm saying? Like, so I can tell you that everybody's hurting now. People that you think are doing fantastic, they're not necessarily doing fantastic. And this is hurting a lot of people. So it's but the only way to get through it is if we all work together and we all listen to what's being put out in front of us and try to kill the virus, man. We got to kill it. We got to kill it, and the only way to kill it is to sit and to wear masks, be safe, continuously make sure to check on your hygiene, and what do you call it, don't do stupid things, because if we all did that for a couple of weeks to beginning, there would be very little, sickness going on now. We would have had a lot less death. You know what I mean? And again, just because you get the virus doesn't mean you're going to die, but it also doesn't mean that you won't. So, you know what I mean? Like, I know a lot of people that have passed from it. I know a lot of people that got sick and then got better from it. Myself and Kim from the show both had it at the beginning, right before it was an actual thing. We were very sick, both of us, and we didn't know what it was. And Kim went to get tested for the flu, and it turned out it wasn't the flu. And they said, "Well, we don't know what it is." I'm pretty sure that's what it was. We were just bad shape. And then once things were going with the virus and it was getting bad, Zambo Steve wound up getting it, and he was in a very bad way for a couple of weeks. So it's very real. It's very real. You know what I mean? Just because you yourself didn't get it, or you don't know somebody who personally who got it, I'm telling you firsthand, it's real. Be safe.
I know.
Why?
I know.
Why be sorry? Just be safe. You know what I mean? It doesn't take anything to throw a mask on. You know, it's proven that it doesn't hurt you. You know, without getting political on it, it's be safe rather than sorry. End of story.
And now I've kept you long enough, so I figured I should give you an opportunity to promote yourself. You got a lot of stuff going on. We didn't get to talk about half your spices and all that stuff. We get into the voice acting side of things or the video game side of things. A lot of stuff's going on with you. So, where can people find you on social media? Twitter, Facebook pages, website, Instagram. I'm assuming you don't have a TikTok. If you do, please
I
tell
do.
us.
I do.
You
You
do have
can
a TikTok.
send me. I do. I do. I haven't done anything on it in a while. But the TikTok is for the younger crew, and I'm not so popular on TikTok. But I really haven't been gone ham on it. But what do you call it?
You
No,
put
if you go to
50% in, you can't expect to get 100% out.
well, yeah, but I don't have time for it. I don't have time for it. What do you call it? If you go to therealbrimstone.com, my website is completely redone. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it
Pretty
yet.
decked out.
Uh,
It's pretty decked.
is you know pretty much almost anything that you need to know about me is on there. There's some things that I still have to be put that I have to put up there. My sauces and seasonings, we're going through a rebrand and they're going to be releasing them again. I have a new sauce coming out through Torchbearer Sauces. What do you call it? Called Torched Stone Thai, which is an ultra hot hot sauce. Is going to be amazing. And we're going to be putting out some other older pieces of my line, which have been off market for a little bit. And so we're doing that. So that's going to be coming back to the site. My coffee line is not represented there right now because my coffee line we pulled. So, I don't know if I'm going to go back to doing that again, but I will be putting it up there, the information, so people see that it was done. What do you call it? But you can go to therealbrimstone.com. You can see pretty much everything that I'm doing. There's tons of content on there. What do you call it to choose from? Pick an avenue and go look at it if you feel like it. All my social media is right on there, but I'm verified everywhere except for Twitter. The Real Brimstone on Instagram, it's where I am the most. What do you call it? It's verified. You can go there. I love to interact with my audience. So if you have a chance, go check that out. Entrance to Hell on Twitter. What do you call it? Which is I don't use as often anymore simply because they haven't verified me, so I'm not very happy with them. And Facebook is facebook.com/brimstone. And then I have Vero. So if you're on Vero and TikTok and all that jazz, everything's up there, IMDb. So what do you call it? Another thing to look for is I'm doing with my buddy Greg Sipes, who's Beast Boy from Teen Titans. I got a project that I'm working with him on. I'm doing the character Commander Frosting for Donut Baby, which is going to be through Viacom. The movie Preacher 6 I've got going on, which hopefully will be out sometime soon. I play one of the demons, Jake, and I do some really cool stuff with that. And yeah, man, the list goes on. So if you're interested, please check me out. Would love to hear from you guys. And thanks for having me, man. I appreciate your time.
And as always, because I've been ending it every interview this way, so if you have extra money, please go and support Brimstone. Buy hot sauce, buy any of his merch. You might still be able to find some stuff on Walmart of the Big Bang backpack if it's still up there. There's a variety of other
I have them
comics.
there. Yeah.
Comixology is a good place to buy stuff as well. I know that if you're
Mhm.
digital, I think the first 4 issues are up on your comic on there. I'm sure that if you type something into Barnes and Noble or Amazon, you'll be able to find it as well. So that's pretty much anything you could buy is pretty much there. And I'm also assuming, and stop me if I'm wrong here, that if somebody can't find something, if they shoot you something or interact with you on social media, you'll direct them to where they can find it.
Absolutely, but there's what do you call it? The Get Burns store is right on the website. So if you
Perfect.
go in there, you could check it out. You can get anything from the 8x10 signed to you
Yep.
name it. It's there. What do you call it? I'm still building out that
Yes.
section, but what do you call it? You'll be able to get some stuff there now.
And I do want to preface this by stating this: if right now you can't afford something, please don't go into debt. Take care of yourself, your family first, because money's tight. I think everybody understands that in this world. But there's no excuse not for following somebody on Instagram or TikTok or Twitter or Facebook. It's free. And the only excuse here, everybody, is if you don't have internet or electricity. And if you don't, please contact me because I want to know how you're watching. Because A, you need help, and B, I can make a fuckload of money off of you because we clearly, you have an invention that I want and I'm willing to work with you. So that's the only excuse to not follow somebody on social media at this point. So
There's
clearly,
also
everybody, that's a fact right there.
Also on my official website, there's what do you call it? There's a section on there that's free downloads and stuff. So if you go there, if you have kids or you like to color, there's Brimstone coloring books there you can download for free. There's RPGs if you guys are into Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that. What do you call it? Troll Lord Games has two Brimstone based games that I have for free download right on my website. What do you call it? You can also download Sorum Party, which you could play as myself and other characters from the Grindhouse Radio. It's a great app. You can pick it right up on the phone. There's other Brimstone video free to play. With an upgrade if you want the whole, unlock things. So, there's a lot of cool stuff out there that you can get it all right online, right on my site, right on my site.
I think that's a perfect place to wrap up.
Well, thanks again.